Chad Shearer, and Chad, you're the host of what TV show?
Host of Shoot Straight with Chad Shearer and a world champion elk caller.
And Chad, what stations does Shoot Straight with Chad Shearer come on?
We're on the Sportsman's Channel, Sports South, and also CBS in Montana.
All right, Chad, you won how many world elk calling championships?
You know, I won the Eastern U.S. twice, and I won the World Professional Division and many state and local competitions.
And you owned a guiding company, guiding for elk, for how long?
You know, I've been an elk guide for over 20 years and an outfitter for almost 17.
What's 5 secrets for taking elk? Let's start with number 1.
Number 1, you have to be in an area that has elk. I know it sounds pretty obvious, but there are places that have more elk than others, so you need to do your research before you go in the woods.
And how do you find a good place to hunt elk?
You know, the best way to do is talk to your local fish and game agency. You can also look in the regulations and look how many cow permits are given away, or if it's in either sex area, find out if they have high numbers of elk in the area. Those are the best ways to start. Talk to the fish and game biologist also.
What's the best states to hunt elk in?
You know, that's pretty much a preference on what you like. For example, Colorado has the highest number of elk. If you're looking at just taking an elk, Colorado is a great state. If you're wanting to take a big bull, right now Utah is producing the biggest bulls in the country. Now there's other great choices too, like Montana, New Mexico, Arizona. I've been fortunate to hunt in all those states. Idaho's good. One thing I will warn you about though is with the increase of wolf numbers out there, you need to make sure before you go how that's affecting the area. Number 2 is you got to put your time in. So often people think they can just go out in the woods and boom, they're going to get an elk. Start out with your preseason scouting. Before the season, get out in the woods. Do a lot of glassing. Spend your time finding out where these elk are watering at, where they're feeding at. And also realize that once the season starts, sometimes everything that you have went into your scouting will change within 1 week. And areas where you didn't see elk the whole time you're scouting now hold large numbers of elk.
Tell us another secret for taking elk.
You know, if you want to take elk, you have to watch your wind. You have to be out there and always play the wind. I constantly will take a bottle of powder or a wind floater and I'll check the wind. I see which way the wind's going. If the wind isn't right, I don't try to approach an elk. Elk have incredible noses, just like giant white-tailed deer. And if the elk is wrong, you're not going to fool them.
So you make sure you got a good wind, right?
You always check your wind. You always make sure it's right. And there's times where I'll be hunting elk in the area for 2 or 3 days and I know the elk are there, but if the wind isn't just right, I don't go push them because I don't want to blow them out of the area.
Chad, what's another secret to taking elk?
Practice, practice, practice. You say, how do you practice taking elk? Well, you practice prior to the season with the weapon you're going to choose. If you're going to shoot your bow out there, you want to practice in realistic hunting conditions. Don't just stand at the range at 10 yards, 20 yards, 30 yards. What I like to do is I'll lay my bow down, I'll run for 30 to 50 yards, get my breathing up, pick up the bow, try and control my breathing, and then shoot, especially if you're up in an area that has high elevation if you're not used to that. The other thing is I sight my rifles or my muzzleloaders in prior to season. I spend my time at the range. One thing I like to do is on the side of my rifle or muzzleloader, I will put what the ballistics are. If I'm dead on at 100 yards, I know what's going to drop at 200. If I'm shooting a centerfire rifle at 300, 400, 500 yards, so that I am set up ready to go.
Chad, if you're going to take an elk with a bow, how far should you be able to shoot to consistently be able to take an elk? And what's a reasonable range with a bow?
You know, I tell people the reasonable range is what you feel comfortable shooting. Now, one thing personally for me, I'm very comfortable out to 40 and 50 yards. Now, I can shoot my bow out to 70 and 80 yards and hit a pie plate, but I'm comfortable on an elk-sized animal at 40 to 50 yards. And some people are only comfortable at 30 yards, so know your limitations. Elk are a majestic animal, and you don't want to take a shot that unless it's just right. The last 2 bulls I've shot have been right at 42 yards each. I have my rangefinder, I carry that with me, and I range them. Now remember, once you get out there past 35, 45, even 55 yards, you get in those ranges, things can happen. There's limbs out there, there's branches, there's wind that can affect it. The elk can take one step, and the further you are away, the more it increases your odds of not making an ethical shot. So always make sure that you take the shot when everything's right.
And what's the fifth thing that can help you take your elk this season?
You know, the fifth thing to take in an elk this season would be getting out there and spending a lot of time glassing. One thing I like to do is I find a high point right at daybreak and right at dusk to do my glassing. I sit there for long periods. I also do it throughout the day, but I'm going to spend a lot of time from longer distances. I use spotting scopes. Why? I don't want the elk to feel pressure. I don't even want them to know that I'm looking at them, but I'm studying where they're going and finding out their routes.